The highest money we collected is from first tag, $1 million from somebody even in first tag.
Before he was called the billionaire kidnapper, before the headlines and the manhunts, he was a quiet boy from Niue. But behind that silence was a mind building one of Nigeria's most feared kidnapping empires. This is the true story of Evans, the ghost who terrorized a nation, and the day justice finally caught him. In the industrial town of Niue, known for its booming spare parts market and the relentless spirit of business, a child was born who would one day rewrite Nigeria's criminal history. His name, Chukwudumeme Onwamadike. But the world would come to know him by a darker name, Evans, the billionaire kidnapper. His legend wouldn't be made through fame, music, wealth, or politics, but through fear. Through a criminal empire built on precision, secrecy, and millions of naira collected in whispered nighttime transactions. To understand Evans, we must begin far away from Lagos, long before the world feared his voice on the phone demanding ransom. We must begin with the boy who grew up watching the flaws of society, a boy who would later weaponize those flaws with chilling intelligence. Evans' early life was neither royal nor glamorous. He was born in the mid-1980s to a family struggling like many others in Nigeria's southeast. His father worked hard, but hardship was a constant visitor. Poverty crept into the corners of their home. And poverty, in many parts of the world, is a quiet teacher, one that teaches hunger first, ambition second, and desperation last. Yet, even as a child, Evans was different. Those who later spoke about him described a boy who was quiet, observant, calculating, not loud, not troublesome, but always watching, always thinking, a mind that seemed to run faster than his environment. In school, he was not a star student, but he wasn't a failure either. He was somewhere in between, smart enough to learn what he needed, detached enough to ignore what he didn't. But school wasn't his battlefield. The streets were. Because Niue, despite its industrial opportunities, has a shadow, crime, greed, sudden wealth, and the hunger for power. Groups of young boys often drifted into petty crime, transporting stolen goods, smuggling, or doing the dirty jobs of bigger men. This world whispered to Evans. It fascinated him, not because he liked violence, but because he saw something in crime that many boys do not. Structure, opportunity, power without permission. As he grew older, Evans began to move between major Nigerian cities: Onitsha, Port Harcourt, Lagos. He entered into petty crime first, working under gang leaders, transporting items he shouldn't, protecting goods that were not legal. With every operation, his confidence grew, his mind sharpened. He learned how criminals think, how they move, how they hide. He learned that the real power in crime is not the gun, but information. It didn't take long for him to rise. Evans had something many gang members lacked: discipline. He didn't drink excessively. He didn't party loudly. He didn't brag. He was invisible. And in the world of organized crime, invisibility is currency. His involvement in more serious crime began in the late 2000s, at a time when kidnapping for ransom was rising across Nigeria. But unlike most kidnappers who operated with carelessness and raw aggression, Evans approached the trade like a businessman. He studied successful kidnappers. He studied police loopholes. He studied the psychology of victims and their families. His first major kidnapping operation was carried out with precision. The victim was high value, the ransom was large, and Evans showed a level of patience unusual for criminals. He didn't rush the negotiations. He didn't panic. He didn't allow emotion to interfere. He understood pressure. He understood fear. And he learned something that would define the rest of his career. People will pay anything to save the ones they love. After the success of his first operation, Evans began to build what would later be described as one of Nigeria's most sophisticated kidnapping networks. It wasn't the largest, but it was the most calculated. He operated in Lagos, Anambra, Edo, and beyond. He had safe houses, well organized, well hidden. Victims were kept in locked rooms, guarded by men who didn't know Evans personally. That was part of his genius, separation. Every person in his organization knew only a fragment of the puzzle. No one had the full picture except Evans himself. He communicated through multiple phones, multiple SIM cards, and coded conversations. He never used one location for too long. He wore disguises. He changed cars frequently. He studied police tactics. Whenever the police tightened their nets, Evans moved like a ghost, slipping through the cracks. His ransom demands shocked Nigeria, while most kidnappers charged 1 million, 2 million, sometimes 5 million naira. Evans thought in hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even more. Evans was caught unprepared. For the first time, the man who built his empire on fear felt powerless. Images of his arrest spread quickly across Nigeria. Evans in his simple t-shirt, looking nothing like the monstrous legend newspapers had created. Some were shocked, others relieved. Many couldn't believe that this quiet-faced man had masterminded multi-million-dollar kidnappings. The kingpin had finally been captured. Following his arrest, Evans was taken into custody and interrogated for days. At first, he stayed silent. He asked for water, then for rest, then for a lawyer. He believed he could outsmart the system again. But investigators were patient. They showed him evidence, ransom routes, testimonies, photographs from safe houses, recordings of his phone calls. They confronted him with gang members who had begun to confess. Evans slowly realized this time he could not escape. Under intense interrogation, he began to talk. His confessions shocked the nation. He admitted to masterminding multiple high-profile kidnappings. He described the internal structure of his gang, the safe houses, the ransom strategies, the divisions of labor, and the international connections he had attempted to build. Behind the calm appearance was a mind that had treated kidnapping like a business empire. But the interrogation also revealed something else: regret. Some say he cried, others say he begged. What is true is that the once feared kingpin was now a man facing the full weight of justice. Evans was charged in multiple courts with kidnapping conspiracy, unlawful possession of firearms, attempted murder, and in later years, even charges related to the murder of police officers. His trials dragged on for years. Courtrooms filled with journalists, lawyers, victims' families, and curious citizens who wanted to see the face of the man whose name once terrorized the nation. Evans' lawyers fought fiercely, arguing about illegal detention, procedural errors, and human rights. But the evidence was overwhelming. Victims took the stand. Gang members testified. Investigators presented meticulous reports, and so began the slow destruction of Evans' empire, not through bullets, but through legal precision. After years of back and forth legal battles, a landmark judgment was issued. Evans was sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping businessman Donatus Dunu. The courtroom fell silent. But this was just one of several cases. Later, in another trial, Evans was sentenced to 21 years in prison for a different kidnapping operation. More charges continued to follow him. More court hearings, more testimonies, more evidence. The once untouchable kingpin was now just another prisoner, living behind the same bars he had once threatened others with. His properties were seized, his vehicles recovered, his accounts frozen, his gang scattered, his empire was no more. Evans sits today in a prison cell, a man who once commanded millions, now surrounded by iron bars and concrete walls. The world he built with secrecy and strategy has been replaced by a world where every movement is controlled, monitored, restricted. His story stands as a warning. No matter how smart you are, no matter how careful, no matter how powerful your network, crime has no permanent victory.